are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to an all-new episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And not just any episode, by the way, but this is technically the first official episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast in 2026. And by the way, no, I don't technically count the one that I did last week because that was to go and highlight all the animation news of 2025. Now, what I mean is that this is the first one where we are in 2026 and I get to talk about the animation news of 2026. And there is another reason why I am excited to go and start this episode with you all, and that's mainly because I was actually behind the scenes to go and fix up the audio of my streams in general, including here of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Ooh, and by the way, thank you, JF, for being this episode's new fish. And I know maybe some of you may not notice, but in the last episode with the top 5 animation news of 2025, I listened a little bit to how the audio was there, and I was just there like, okay, that needs a bit of a tune-up. So I did take the time to go and improve some things. I don't know if it's something that you may notice, but for someone like me who's been doing this for many years, I've pretty much grown a technical ear where I can go and hear it if it would sound good or if it would sound off. But now I'm a lot more confident that it sounds a lot better and that we can have some great sounding episodes from here. Now, with that said, though, there is another thing that I do want to go and mention, that I understand that when it comes to 2026, we are not off to a great start. In fact, we are off to a very frightening start. Twitter has now become even more controversial and now even more unusable than ever, to the point that now Grok is AI generating CSAM, and it really is starting to be at the point where if you're not off Twitter, you need to do so now before people are starting to question you and your use of that social media platform. Like, now it really is at the point where, like, even if people are still addicted to that website, y'all need to get out of there now. If you have any moral principles, you really have to go and quit Twitter. I mean, like, if the fact that it has AI that can generate CSAM not enough for you to go and permanently leave that site and find another place for your social media consumption, then at that point, the problem is more you than it is anything else. Like, now it's at the point where, like, you're pretty much selling out your principles instead of, like, doing the right thing. So yeah, honestly, we need to take more action to call people out so that more people can quit Twitter. And this is not even to mention the other stuff that has happened, like the unfortunate incident where an ICE cop has actually murdered an individual. And no, there's no way around it. It really is the fact that an ICE cop is a murderer. So yes, as some people stated in the chat, justice for Renee Good. And I'm just saying, there is a valid reason why the grand majority of people care a lot more for someone like Renee Good than for someone like Charlie Kirk. It really does highlight where if you want to be remembered as a good person, then you have to live your life as a good person. And even in what some may say as a good Christian, where you must be progressive, you must be liberal, you must be against racism, homophobia, transphobia, and all that kind of hatred, and reject fairy tales of eugenics and apartheid and all that kind of nonsensical garbage. So yes, I just want to go and pay my respects to the people of Minnesota who they recently had that incident and got attacked by pretty much terrorists who are much worse than what Republicans claim communism is. So yeah, at that point, it really shows the true evils of Donald Trump, his supporters, and his administration that, again, have proven to be much worse than what they claim communism technically is, or whatever. Basically, the whole point that I want to make is that, yes, it's off to a pretty bad start, but then again, we are still only beginning. And one more thing that I do want to mention, just a special shout out, and just want to pay my respects to Guy Moon also, considering that he has recently passed away due to a car crash. And for those of you who don't know, Guy Moon is actually a composer of many beloved animated shows, a lot of which are from Nickelodeon. And probably what he is the most recognized for is collaborating with Butch Hardman for the music of his shows, such as The Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, and Tough Puppy. And I gotta say, it was honestly very frightening to actually read about how he passed away, considering that I know I normally don't share a lot about my personal life and what I do outside of making videos and stuff like that, but a few weeks ago, I actually got into a car accident, and thankfully it wasn't like terrible to the point where people got hurt and stuff like that. There were no injuries that happened. The only actual damage that happened was just the front of my car. And as I'm recording this, my car is still in the shop, and I still have to wait to know until if it's actually repairable or if I have to go and find a new car in the first place. But the point that I want to make is that after experiencing that and having that trauma still fresh in me, it was terrifying to go and read that it could still happen to anyone else, and it could also be much worse to the point of being fatal. So yeah, it was horrifying to go and read that, and still very sad. So with that said, may Guy Moon rest in peace. So yes, as I was saying before though, yes, we are still at the very beginning of 2026. And while things may seem dire at the start, things can still pick up where it could become much, much better, where we can probably see some justice happening, justice for Renee Good, hoping for the downfall of modern conservatism so that it can be replaced with socialism in the long run, and all that kind of stuff. And what we got here in terms of news, oh boy, do we have some exciting things to go and report, to go and create a wild episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I'd like to go and ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are you ready? Now, let's see now. Yes, people are prepared. People are ready. Okay, that is wonderful to see. That is great. And now, with that said, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first one that we have for you today, well, we're going to go and inspect what happened last night, or the night before that I am recording this, in which we are going to go and actually begin with talking about award season. And already it's off to a big start, considering that it has initiated the Golden Globe Awards. Yes, the 83rd Annual Golden Globe Awards has officially happened, and now they have crowned their big winners. And one major winner that we have seen, and we may end up seeing a bit of a pattern where this is going to be the big winner across award season all the way up to the Oscars, is none other than One Battle After Another, in which that film managed to win a total of 4 Golden Globe Awards. These include Best Picture in the musical or comedy category. There is also, just going down, Best Supporting Actress in a Movie, which was given to Teyana Taylor. Then it also won for Best Screenplay as well as Best Director. And by the way, there were a few movies that also managed to get 2 Golden Globe Awards, which includes The Secret Agent, in which it won Best Picture in the non-English category, as well as winning Best Actor in a Drama for Wagner Moura. And then you also got Sinners, which that managed to win for Best Cinematic and Box Office Achievement and Best Original Score. And just to go and take a little moment to the television categories, we also have one major winner here, which was Adolescence, in which that managed to also win 4 Golden Globe Awards, in which it won for Best Limited Series, as well as, let me just go down to see what else it won. It managed to win Best Actor in a Limited Series for Stephen Graham, as well as the supporting roles as well. Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress in a Series went to Owen Cooper and Erin Doherty, as well as a couple of shows that also managed to get some Golden Globe wins, including The Pit, that managed to win Best TV Drama, as well as Best Actor in a Drama for Noah Weil, and also Best TV, also The Studio, winning for Best Series in the Musical or Comedy category, as well as Seth Rogen winning Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy. But with all that said, however, in the animation category, there was one winner, and that turned out to be K-Pop Demon Hunters. Let me go and switch that up a bit to Golden Globe's official website. So yes, as you can see here, K-Pop Demon Hunters turned out to be the winner for Best Animated Feature, to which it managed to beat out Arco, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, Elio, Little Emily or the Character of Rain, and Zootopia 2. But wait, there is more, because this was not the only win that K-Pop Demon Hunters got. Yes, it also managed to get 2 Golden Globes, in which it also won for Best Original Song for Golden, in which that managed to beat out Dream as One from Avatar Fire and Ash, I Lied to You from Sinners, No Place Like Home and The Girl in the Bubble from Wicked for Good, and Train Dreams from the movie of the same name. And I gotta say, just looking into it, and by the way, just want to make one clarification so that I could get this out of the way. No, I did not see the ceremony. I did not actually go and watch it. I never really cared to go and see the Golden Globe show itself, because often it can be pretty cringy. And from what I've heard, there may have been a few highlights that did happen. Like a lot of people gave praise to Wanda Sykes' speech, in which she presented for the Best Comedy Special, and that ended up going to Ricky Gervais. And she went, and since Ricky Gervais was not there, she went out to go and say, Ricky Gervais would like to thank God and the trans community for the award. So, a nice little backhanded compliment to Ricky Gervais there. I will say, that is a nice little highlight from Wanda Sykes. But other than that, though, the rest, from what I've heard, it really is just meh. It's just as cringy as you may expect. And also, there might have been I don't think there was a gambling aspect, but they showed weird polls to say which movie would most likely win in this category, and that kind of crap that made it additionally weird. So I don't know. I can't really comment on the show itself because I just didn't really care to go and watch it. But I will say, not just with the Golden Globes, but from what we are starting to see with some of the patterns that did occur with some of the early award shows, like with the Critics' Choice Awards and the Astro Awards and so on and so forth, now leading up to where we are now with one of the big ones with the Golden Globe Awards at this point. Now we are starting to see patterns of what will happen in terms of some of these movies, especially. One major takeaway that I could say Oh, and by the way, thank you, Joe, for being a new fish here. Very excited to have that continue on during the show. But back what I was saying, I do feel like there is more, there is going to be more of this that we are going to be experiencing. Like, number one, the big ultimate winner is starting to become more and more clear, and that is one battle after another, especially when the movie itself is walking away with a good amount of the big prizes, where a lot of these associations and award shows, they're giving the best picture to one battle after another. We're seeing a lot of accolades given to Paul Thomas Anderson for his directing, and some of the actors as well. We are starting to see some recognition also when it comes to their performances. Like, a lot of people gave praise to people like Sean Penn or Javier Bardem, or even in the case of the Golden Globes, where they're giving it to Teyana Taylor. And not to mention as well that we're seeing some praise from Leo DiCaprio also, but chances are this one being one where he'll walk away with like one of the major awards might be unlikely, especially when it has proven to be very competitive, especially from performances from people like Timothée Chalamet, and keep in mind, like, even in the Golden Globes, this is just for like the music, the musical or comedy category. This doesn't even count like some of the other like very notable ones, like with Oscar Isaac as Frankenstein, or Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack as Sinners, or even the winner in the drama category, Wagner Moura. So yeah, chances are Leonardo DiCaprio will get nominations, but getting the win, not so much. But the point here, though, is that it's very clear that one battle after another is going to be a major winner, and it's highly likely that even up to the Oscars, it's going to win Best Picture for that as well. Another big takeaway that I did get also is in regards to Sinners. I feel like that's going to be one where, even though that's not going to be the Best Picture winner, that's going to be one where we will hear its name a lot, especially in terms of nominations. It will be gathering a good amount of them, while at the same time, it will be walking away with at least some awards. Maybe not the major ones, but it will be getting something. It will be getting somewhere. It will get recognized for some of the technical aspects that went into it, probably with production design, or maybe with hair and makeup, or in the case here, actually, considering that it did manage to win Best Original Score, it could also be a top contender for that. And I mean, yeah, it also won Cinematic and Box Office Achievement, but then again, that category we've already established, and we already know that's a little bit of a gimme, kind of like a gimme thing. It's kind of like one of those like crowd pleaser awards, so that people don't get too pissed off if a popular movie doesn't get enough awards. So of course they're just going to throw it away to Sinners, which, I mean, I love Sinners. It's one of my favorite movies of 2025. But still, though, like, just this just like, we've already talked about this. It feels like a joke category already. But in terms of animation, though, of course, a big highlight is the fact that K-Pop Demon Hunters is already proven to be strong, where so far it has managed to collect a good amount of the awards for Best Animated Feature. And on top of that, Golden has also been proven to be a strong contender for Best Original Song. And that one, I will say, with Golden, it already has stronger and stronger chances where that will end up collecting most of the Best Original Song awards throughout this whole thing, especially with the fact that since it is also nominated for Song of the Year at the Grammy Awards, it could be a very strong indicator that it could also do well in these movie awards as well. But as for Best Animated Feature, however, that feels like, I don't know if maybe this is just me, but I feel like this is more that we will wait and see a little bit with how it's going to perform in the long run. there is a likelihood that, yes, it'll probably collect most of it, but when it comes to many of the big ones, especially like with the Oscars and stuff like that, that I feel like we will have to wait and see, especially it's to go and fully determine if the flow effect is either real or if it's just like a lucky exception to what is common with this category. Because as you guys remember, one of the biggest moments that happened in the last award season was the fact that the big animation winner turned out to be Flow, which was this small independent animated feature that came out of nowhere and managed to beat out many of the big competitors, including DreamWorks with The Wild Robot, Pixar with Inside Out 2, and Aardman with Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. And I will admit, there was a part of me that felt like I wish we could go and see that again this year, and that maybe the Golden Globes would provide like a surprise where they would go and give the award to something like Little Amelie or maybe even Arco. But alas, that's not the case here, and it turns out they would go and give it to K-Pop Demon Hunters. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to see K-Pop Demon Hunters collectively get that win again and again, because there is that likelihood that maybe we will see, maybe at the Oscars, that could go in a completely different direction. So ultimately, we can only determine how the overall award season can be until like the Oscars happen, which that won't be until mid-March, and then we'll be done. So yeah, I feel like right now, this is just an indicator that the chances of K-Pop Demon Hunters coming out as the big winner of this award season for animation, it's starting to become pretty strong, especially with that Golden Globe win. But does that mean it will be winning some of the other big ones? Honestly, that we will have to wait and see. And I think I could say now that it is a guaranteed no, it's not going to be getting all the big ones, considering that it's not nominated for a BAFTA. It was actually unqualified because it's just a streaming movie, and in the UK, it didn't have any sufficient theatrical releases for it to go and properly be nominated. But still, though, there's still more award shows to come. There's still more to see how things are going to go more into the future. But in the case over here at the Golden Globes, may I just say congratulations to all the winners at this year's Golden Globe Awards. And with that said, now I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think of the winners of the Golden Globe Awards? How do you feel about K-Pop Demon Hunters winning Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song? And what are your thoughts on some of the other winners as well, including Sinners, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, and several others? I would like to know what you guys think. All right, let's see now. These wins are very impressive. K-Pop Demon Hunters was one of my favorite animated films from last year alongside Zootopia 2, so it deserves it. As for Golden winning with how much it become a hit, down to the point where it's up to becoming the song of the where it is up for a song of the year at the Grammys, and because of this, I'm honestly more convinced that K-pop will be the big winner at the Oscars, and even Golden could win there too. All right. Let's see. I've made it no secret that I'm a major fan of K-Pop Demon Hunters, so seeing it taking home 2 awards is amazing. I kind of knew it would get Best Animated, but I wasn't expecting it to win Best Original Song. My money was on I Lied to You from Sinners. But as for the ceremony itself, Nikki Glaser knocked it out of the park with her jokes. One battle after another's wins were completely justified, and damn, Judd Apatow really pulled an Adrian Brody. Why was his monologue so long? Oh, honestly, I cannot answer that for you. I didn't even know about the length of that Judd Apatow speech. I would have to look that up to know what you're talking about. Let's see. K-Pop Demon Hunters won 2 Golden Globes. Yay! I know the movie is not perfect, but hey, it's a solid film. Congratulations to Maggie Kang, the Huntrix actresses, and the crew for winning Best Animated Feature. I wonder what fans on the internet will feel about the Demon Slayer movie, lol. I honestly don't know. Let's see now. Great show last night. I believe that K-pop will win the Oscar, but it could face some challenges with no BAFTA nominations. I worry it could lose to another film because of anti-Netflix settlements. It is partially why Green Book won over Roma. Oh, that I believe we will have to wait and see. Honestly, I have a lot of thoughts regarding that, but I'm going to save it for a little bit later when we will be talking about the Oscar nominations and that they'll reveal who will be nominated as well. So, I think honestly, the discussions about the awards and K-pop Demon Hunters and Best Animated Features, I feel like they're going to get more interesting as we keep moving forward in this award season. Let's see now. I'm honestly happy for Maggie and Chris winning Best Animated Feature and seeing other winners like Steven Spielberg winning for Hamnet. It's been a long or is it Hamlet, or I believe you mean Hamnet. But anyways, let's see here. It's been a long time to see him winning an award. I thought the ceremony itself was okay. Why do we have a podcast category though? Don't get me started on cinematic achievements. I mean, it's basically a popularity contest at this point. Yeah, honestly, I feel like with the Golden Globes, like they know that they're kind of losing relevancy and they want to keep on adding these additional categories just to keep people interested and to watch the actual show itself. I mean, it's already bad enough that they added Best Cinematic Achievement, but now they're also adding some extra stuff like Best Podcast, which just feels like giving extra trophies to celebrities for like no major reason. So honestly, this is why I don't really watch the Golden Globes and why I personally don't take it that much seriously anyways. Like, this is why I only consider it as like, okay, now that they won these things, what does it mean for what's to come for some of the more important stuff? No, but anyways, with all that said, though, I just want to say, again, congratulations to all the winners of this year's Golden Globe Awards. So, with that said, it is now time we are going to go on to our first break. And when we do come back, we're going to go and discuss about another award show. But this time around, we're just going to be focusing onto the nominations. And boy, do we have a fascinating round of nominees for this year for animation's biggest night. So stay tuned for that. All right, welcome back, everyone. Now that we got the Golden Globes out of the way, let's go and discuss about the award show that animation fans have been anticipating for, the Annie Awards, in which recently, yes, Asifa Hollywood did reveal the nominees for this year's Annie Awards. And may I say, this year is a lot more interesting, at least in terms of the nominations. I'll even go as far and say that the nominations are a lot more fascinating than who may become the winners here. So with that said, let's go ahead and officially check out the nominees for the 53rd Annie Awards. And before I go into some of the details about it, let's go into the individual main awards of who is nominating and who is competing this year. So starting things off, let's get into the Best Series in the Preschool category. And the nominees in those are Eva the Owlet for the episode Welcome to Tree Toppington, Kindergarten the Musical for the episode Gotta Go, The Tiny Chef Show for the episode Tiny Chef's Spooky Stump Spectacular, Wow Lisa for the episode Rainy Day, and Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum for the episode I Am Jackie Robinson. Next up, we got the Best Series in the children's category, and the episode for that are My Melody and Kuromi for the episode All for Our Best Friends, Spice Frontier, Escape from Veltagar for the first episode, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the episode Rise of the Night Ninja, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball for the episode Rewrite, and for Wild Park, for the episode Sungadul. And then you have the Best Series for the Mature category. And the nominees are Bob's Burgers for the episode Grand Pre-Opening, Common Side Effects for the pilot episode, Ha Ha You Clowns for episode 107 Duncan Holds a Baby, Il Baraccino for the episode Claudia Entra in un Café, and South Park for the episode Sermon on the Mount. And then you also have Best Series in the Limited Series category, and the nominees are Asterix and Obelix, The Big Fight for the third episode, Eyes of Wakanda for the episode Into the Lion's Den, Marvel Zombies for episode 2, Star Wars Visions Volume 3 for the episode Black, and Win or Lose for the 8th episode Home. Now moving on up, we also got the Best Special Production category, and the nominees for those are A Loud House Christmas Movie, Naughty or Nice, Adult Swim's The Elephant, Not Just a Goof, Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical, and The Night Before Christmas in Wonderland. Moving on up to Best Independent Animated Feature, the nominees are A Magnificent Life, Arco, I Am Frankelda, Lost in Starlight, and Scarlet. And finally, the nominees for Best Animated Feature, and they are Elio, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Little Emily, or the character of Rain, The Bad Guys 2, and Zootopia 2. Now, when it comes to the specifics, like going down into the individual awards, I almost forgot. Yes, we got the juried awards as well to go and mention. Might as well to go and get that out of the way. Because yes, this year's Lifetime Achievement Winsor McKay Award actually belongs to some familiar names, including Michael Dudok DeWitt, who you may remember as the guy who brought us the Red Turtle. You got Phil Lord and Chris Miller, whom they need no introduction, as well as Chris Sanders, whom he as well does not need an introduction. Now, for the June Foray Awards, it shall go to Sandy Rabbins, in which my source here on Animation Magazine states, is an animation and live action producer and the founding guiding light for the AniMaid effort to assist and support those in the animation industry who were affected by the LA wildfires last year. Meanwhile, you also got the iWorks Awards, which shall be given to Wacom, the company that has brought us the Syntec graphics tablet. So they got this year's Technical Achievement Award. And finally, for the Special Achievement Award, it shall go to the Lightbox Expo. Now I shall go and discuss about some of these specifics. Now, it should come to no surprise that K-Pop Demon Hunters is one of the films leading the Annie Awards, considering that it has a total of 10 nominations across the board, including what I've mentioned for Best Animated Feature. However, it's not K-Pop Demon Hunters nor Netflix that actually came out as the big winner in terms of the nominations this year. That actually belongs to Disney, or more specifically with Pixar, where in terms of the total amount of awards that they have gathered, Netflix has accumulated a total of 30, while Disney got the upper edge with a total of 31. And a big reason why they got all those nominations, believe it or not, is actually because of Elio. Because Elio, alongside K-Pop Demon Hunters, also managed to get a total of 10 nominations across the board, including for Best Animated Feature. And not only that, but Pixar in general became a major player at this year's Annie Awards, because on top of leading the nominations with Elio, they're also leading the nominations in terms of series with Win or Lose, because that has managed to get a total of 6 Annie nominations, including what I've read for Best Series in a Limited Series. I know it sounds a little bit repetitive, but just stay with me there. Now, other movies and shows noteworthy of having multiple nominations include Zootopia 2 and Little Emily, or the Character of Rain, getting a total of 7 nominations, whereas The Bad Guys 2 has managed to get a total of 5. Meanwhile, in the television category, there have been several that managed to go and actually get a few as well, in which Asterix and Obelix, The Big Fight, and Common Side Effects were able to get 5 nominations. And then you also got Love, Death plus Robots, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical, all getting 3 nominations each. So this is why I say that I feel like the nominations are a lot more fascinating than what could potentially be the winners. And I just want to go and say this right now, at the risk of possibly saying a hot take here, but from what we got, and honestly, at the pace of what we are seeing so far with this award season, and especially with what gets nominated for best animated feature and stuff like that, I honestly feel more proud for Elio more so than I am for the wins of K-pop Demon Hunters. Because even though, Elio has not been getting any of the wins whatsoever, the fact that it's not just that it shows up for being nominated for best animated features, but the fact that it's one of this year's staples in award season, where if it has a best animated feature category, there's a very good chance it would have Elio in it. That I feel like in itself is very impressive, because after everything that Elio went through during the summer of 2025, it met a very unfortunate fate, where a lot of it is unfortunately bad luck, where even though it got a lot of positive word of mouth and a lot of praise from critics and audiences, it still didn't change where financially at the box office, it did unfortunately turn into a flop. And people were more preoccupied to bash the movie for that in particular than to actually go and see the movie itself, where not only it flopped, not only it sadly bombed at the box office, but then you got people on social media just slamming it, not only weaponizing the success of K-pop Demon Hunters to attack Elio, but even bringing up bullcrap excuse to go and hate it, especially with its art style, where a lot of people are just complaining about the freaking Cal art style. That's one of the dumbest things to happen in 2025 with the cartoon community, is that somehow people felt like it's acceptable to bring back the already debunked and garbage argument about the Cal art style, or whatever you call it, the B-Mouse style or whatever, just basically bringing that trash up just to go and find a reason to give hate for Elio. It really feels like people were desperately forcing themselves to hate on Elio because it's much more profitable to go and hate on Disney and stuff like that. That's why nowadays, when you see people throwing their hate on Elio or making videos about why Elio was a bomb, why people hate Elio, why they hate the style, it just feels like grifters that's no different than whatever you expect from the freaking trash of YouTube, with the Quartering or the Critical Drinker, or whatever deplorables would go and try to grift their audiences just for the sake of getting attention. And to make matters worse, there was a moment where you feel like maybe Elio would go and get a chance to actually shine on Disney Plus, where maybe it would become a sleeper hit there. No, sadly, its premiere was at the worst time possible, where it happened at the same time as when Disney got backlash for the Jimmy Kimmel controversy. It was at the point where it just couldn't, Elio just couldn't catch a break, rather it be on the internet, at the box office, or even on streaming, because of the company's incompetence. So at that point, it just felt like, it's just like one bad luck after another. It basically feels like, I think the best way to put it is that Elio is like the Millhouse of animated films of 2025. It's like, it's just been faced with bad luck again and again and again. And a lot of it is just not its own fault. It's just trying to get by, to live its life, and just be this fun little alien adventure. But now, it looks like things are starting to turn around, and the funny thing is, a lot of people are even bringing up, now people are saying, I see in the chat wall, everything's coming up, Elio! And it kind of is, honestly, because of the fact that it is getting nominated. It does actually give it some recognition. Like, it's being recognized in places like the Golden Globe Awards, the Critics' Choice Awards, and many other places that have the Best Animated Feature category. And now even here at the Annie Awards, where it's got as much nominations as K-Pop Demon Hunters, honestly, I feel like that is impressive. And not even to mention that it got even more than Zootopia 2 as well. So if anything, hopefully this can be the start of Elio for its reputation to start turning around, for people to actually watch Elio instead of watching dumb YouTube videos, just nitpicking the crap out of it or whatever, just for the sake of profit. So this is why I just want to say, I think that's the big reason why I feel like I'm really happy to see Elio getting the wins more so, or not the wins, but getting the nominations more so than with K-Pop Demon Hunters, because with K-Pop Demon Hunters, this is not to bash the film at all, by the way, but I feel like with how it's been doing in this award season, it's to be expected in a way. Like, it's to be expected that K-Pop Demon Hunters would be a prominent contender for Best Animated Feature, and for Golden as well, to also be a prominent contender for Best Original. Woo, excuse me. But as I was saying, it's expected that they would be prominent contenders. But with Elio, I didn't expect it. I thought that maybe because it was a box office flop, that, Disney would go and sweep it under the rug and not really mention it much. They don't want to face that embarrassment of having a box office bomb in display, kind of like what happened with films like Lightyear or Strange World or Wish and stuff like that. But Elio, however, that managed to turn things around. That actually is one that has managed to prove its worth and has actually shown that it can at least present itself to actually say, hey, I'm one of the best animated features of the year, and I am worth considering to see if you would want to vote for me for Best Animated Feature. So in that regards, that's honestly great on Elio. Now, in terms of the winners, however, I know I really got into a lot with Elio on this one, but if we are going to go and talk about the winners here, honestly, knowing how the Annie Awards work, and I do hope that I am proven wrong, but I do feel like there's going to be a lot of love for K-Pop Demon Hunters, and it'll probably be another big sweep for K-Pop Demon Hunters, where whatever it will be whatever category it's in, it will go and immediately grab it. It's like that kind of cheap runaway that kind of makes the Annie Awards less fun to see who are going to be the big winners. Again, I wish that I could be proven wrong here, and that maybe we are going to see some of the other films actually manage to beat out K-Pop Demon Hunters in some of it. I'm not asking for K-Pop Demon Hunters to not win anything. Even if it would end up winning 5 Annie Awards or maybe even 6, I'll be content with that. But winning everything that it would be nominated would honestly be a bit too much. But I would love to see, at the very least, in some of the smaller categories, for example, if we just go down best character animation, for example, it would go to either like Zootopia 2 or Little Amelie instead of K-pop Demon Hunters. Or even where is it actually? A great example would be best voice acting, for example, that you would give it to Remy Edgerly for her performance in Glorden and Elio instead of giving it to Arden Cho. You know, something like, you know, like just those things. I feel like I would be happy that it wouldn't all go to K-pop Demon Hunters and give some to either like Little Amelie or Zootopia 2 or Elio or The Bad Guys 2 or something like that. So that's why I'm saying that I feel like with the nominations, they're a lot more fascinating than who could potentially win, because at this point, unless I could be proven wrong, and I wish that I could be proven wrong by this, it looks like it's likely that K-pop Demon Hunters will just go and win everything, and the rest, well, it just won't matter because all the attention is just going to go onto that one, which ultimately I feel like will once again lessen the value of the Annie Awards in general. But again, please, Asifa Hollywood, prove me wrong. Give some wins to some others. Don't let K-pop Demon Hunters get literally everything. So, well, I guess ultimately we will have to wait and see. And for the Annie Awards, by the way, if you are interested to know when the ceremony will happen and who the winners will be named, then keep in mind it's all going to happen on Saturday, February 21st. And now, with that said, I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, how do you feel about this year's nominees for the Annie Awards? Are there any major ones that you want to go and talk about? Are there any little specifics that you want to talk about, like with certain categories? Let me know what you guys think here. All right, so, oh boy, there is a lot to unpack. I was not expecting Elio to do this well, but it's nice to see that it's the most nominated Pixar film since Soul. Knowing Asifa Hollywood, I just know that K-pop Demon Hunters will go win everything it's nominated for, even if I would love to be proven wrong. But don't know why an indie film like Little Amelie is in Best Mainstream Animated Feature. I feel Zootopia 2 should have gotten Best Directing nomination, and sad to see King in the Hill got shut out. Yeah, you know, I would like to say, though, you know, the thing with... The thing with like some of the specific ones, I do have like some of my personal pet peeves, and I do feel like honestly with Zootopia 2, there are some places where I feel like it should have been nominated more. Like I absolutely agree with the best directing category, which if we go down over here, where would it be? Yeah, there we go. For Best Directing, it went to Arco, Chainsaw Man, Res Arc, K-pop Demon Hunters, Little Amelie, and Scarlet. Honestly, I feel like there should have been room for like some of the Disney ones. Like this is one, honestly, Elio should have been nominated, because one of the best things I feel like about that movie is the directing. Like Domi Shi and Madeline Sharafian, I feel like they should have gotten a nomination for Best Directing. And especially Zootopia 2. How the fridge did Byron Howard not get a nomination for Best Directing? Like, he did amazing in this. And honestly, there are those that, like, I could easily go and, like, swap out. Like, honestly, I would swap out Scarlet for one of the Disney ones. And this is going to be a very hot take, but I would even replace K-pop Demon Hunters with Elio on that. I feel like one of the stronger things about Elio compared to K-pop Demon Hunters is that it has better directing, where even with a plot that can have some problems, they were able to handle it much better than what K-pop Demon Hunters has. And not to mention, there's another one that I have a bit of a pet peeve, and that is in regards to best voice acting, where, okay, there are some that I do get. Yes, I get Elio and K-pop Demon Hunters getting a nomination for Arden Cho and Remy Edgerly, and I'll even give it that, yes, I feel like Dogman should get a nomination because Lil Ray Howley was great as Chief. He was like one of the best parts of Dogman. But Craig Robinson as Baloney Tony and In Your Dreams, and Maitreyi, I'm not going to go and fully pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I just rather play it safe than to not butcher it. Playing as Bisha in the Twits? Okay, they're not bad performances, but they're not really memorable either. Now, that is one that I personally feel like, honestly, why didn't you give a nomination for like the kid who played Elio? Or why not any of the Zootopia 2 characters? Why not give it to like Kiwi Kwan or Patrick Warburton or Fortune Feimster or hell, even Andy Samberg deserves a nomination. Like, honestly, those are the ones that I feel like, what the fridge is wrong with this one here, honestly? I have a few others, but those are like kind of like my main gripes at this year's Annie Awards. But it's like, just like little nitpicky stuff, just thought I would go and mention that. Anyways, I will say there are definitely some solid nominations when it comes to Best Animated Feature. I'm honestly rooting for either Zootopia 2 or K-Pop Demon Hunters, and I'm happy for Elio too, and hopefully it'll get a few wins. However, I'm honestly somewhat concerned. If this is the Annies we're talking about, then I'm concerned they're going to have a stupid bias towards one film, which I think is going to be K-Pop Demon Hunters, which I have been talking about. Yeah. It'll be like when The Wild Robot won every single thing it was nominated for, except for one. Yeah, exactly, man. Like, that's the thing. And with the fact, like, it's one thing to have like a shocking runaway, but if you make that like happening every single year, it really, like, I've talked about this many times before in this podcast and in several posts as well. It just takes away a lot of the wow factor, and it takes away a lot of the integrity of the award itself. And I hate to be that animation fan, but like, the more that the Annie Awards keeps on doing like this massive bias and like these big runaways with one movie getting everything, then it really does lessen the value of how animation is cinema, if you get what I mean. So yeah, I understand like the term is pretty cringy nowadays, but I just feel like with what Asifa is doing with the Annie Awards, with the bias and the runaways, like, it's part of the reason why not many people really take animation as seriously. At least that's just in my opinion. Okay. Anyways, let's see. Again, you know me, I'm repping K-Pop Demon Hunters for Best Animated Feature, but it would be cool to see some love for films like Elio and Zootopia 2. But as for the individual awards, it's cool that Elio got so many nominations because it's a very underrated movie. And Best Voice Acting, look, Maitreyi was okay in The Twits, but over Kiwi Kwan in Zootopia 2? Or Daniel Brooks in The Bad Guys 2? Hell, I'd argue even Clancy Brown in Search for SquarePants deserves the nomination more. Oh, that is an interesting choice, actually. Like, yeah, there are some SpongeBob performances that aren't bad, and I guess, I could see Mr. Krabs, because, like, even though, like, I'm pretty mad on the movie, like, it is definitely, like, it really was a moment where Clancy Brown really shined as Mr. Krabs. You do bring up a good point. Let's see what other comments do we have. Let's see. That's quite an impressive list there. When it comes to predicting who will win, I'm betting on either Elio or Zootopia 2. Mainly Zootopia 2, since I love the sequel a lot. I'm really worried that K-Pop Demon Hunters will sweep, but it's kind of expected these days. As for the Achievement Award, let's hope Phil Lord and Chris Miller took it at heart given their mistreatment of animators. Yeah, I honestly don't know. That's gonna be like a whole other topic for another day. And I don't know, like, it would depend, like, if we got an update from like an animator or something to know, like, how is the production of Beyond the Spider-Verse so far? How are they handling it? Or how are people, how are the animators at Sony feeling now that there is going to be a Mitchells versus the Machines too? Okay. Anyways, what else to go and read? I don't have a lot of time, so I'll only read a few more left. Let's see. Oh, and someone mentions also it's hilarious in the TV voice acting category that Zach Hadel got nominated, not for voicing Charlie or any other character that blew up in popularity like Squim, but rather the wizard that only appears in one episode. If Zach wins, it'll be extra hilarious and honestly well deserved. Yeah, that is true. For those of you who don't know, if we go into best voice acting in the TV category, yes, Zach Hadel got a nomination for Smiling Friends for being the voice of the evil wizard in the episode The Schmalugels. And thinking about it, I feel like it does make a little bit of sense. Because when you think about it, there's a lot of like that very casual banter that they would keep on doing in Smiling Friends, and it's honestly kind of fun. It's honestly kind of funny with the moments where there would be the banter between Charlie and the wizard, where it's basically Zach just talking to himself, but he does that very well, and that's kind of like part of the great comedy and part of the strengths of Smiling Friends is when they really get casual and it really feels like they're just going off script just to talk. And with the wizard, it really is one of the strongest examples of that. So in a way, it's like, it's weird, but in a way, I get it. All right, I'll read one more now. I have to say, some of these nomination choices are so great that it's hard to determine who should win. I'm really happy that Elio is getting the recognition it deserves. It's also like Pixar's Steven Universe. I even feel appreciated that Wild Park got something, which despite the humor needing some improvement, they do have some fantastic nominations. Their best episode is definitely Sungandul. Congrats on the rest of the nominations and hope the best of the wins. And yep, that comment described it best. Congratulations to all who are nominated at this year's Annie Awards, and we will see who will become the top winner when the Annies are going to be held on Saturday, February 21st. All right, so I think that shall do it for the awards talk, and we're going to go on to another break. And when we come back, now I will go and discuss about a sequel. And I don't know if I will say that this is an anticipated sequel, but I think it's safe to say that you're not going to expect this sequel to happen, even though, well, now it is. But yeah, I think it's safe to say some of you will be shocked to know that this sequel is now going to be a thing. Oh, we're back. Holy crap. I just lost track of time right there. Okay, but anyways, yes, welcome back. And now it is time for our next story right over here, in which we got a very unexpected sequel. Now, you remember back in 2021, where we were still in the middle of the pandemic and the vaccine just rolled around so that we could go and immediately start the process of putting things back to normal, even though it wouldn't take until a few more years until we can move on from the pandemic and having COVID around and all that kind of stuff. Now, even though, yes, I know that technically COVID is still around to this day, but at least it is a lot more manageable now that we are well equipped with the vaccines needed and stuff like that. But as I was saying, back in 2021, you may recall that on Netflix, there was an abundance of animated features that came out, especially from Sony Pictures Animation, where they decided to take a similar route to what Pixar did with Disney Plus and decided to go, instead of releasing their films in theaters because, well, they couldn't, they decided to go and put them out directly onto Netflix. And they put out a good bunch. And we actually saw some very impressive animated features, including, of course, the most notable one being The Mitchells vs. the Machines. And then there was also Vivo, which I personally feel like to be one of Sony Animation's most underrated animated features alongside Surf's Up. But then there was another one that is not as often mentioned, and yet it's surprisingly not the last time that we are going to see that film now. So with that said, let's go and discuss about Wish Dragon 2. Yes, folks, Wish Dragon is actually going to be getting a sequel. And the more we dive deep into this, the more interesting it's starting to sound. Not necessarily in terms of the movie itself, but with what's going on with the movie. Because the thing is that this was actually announced a little while ago. They say that It was announced back in November, but it wasn't until very recently, just a few days ago, where people started to pick up on this news and realize, holy crap, this is actually a thing. In which there was a major film event that was going on in China, and Chris Bremble, who is the head, who is actually the founder and the CEO of Base Media, actually revealed that they are currently making a sequel to Wish Dragon, and there's actually some pictures to go and prove it. So here is Chris Bremble at the event, and behind him is a massive screen presenting Wish Dragon 2, which features the main characters, like you got the main guy and his friend who is a girl. Like, they really emphasize a lot that they're just platonic friends. Like, that I do recall from Wish Dragon. And of course, you got the title dragon himself, right next to the title of Wish Dragon 2. But anyways, to go more info into this movie, now, we don't necessarily know the details specifically of what's going to be happening in the feature, but they did confirm about who's going to be working on it and even the release date. In which it is stated right over here, reading from my source on what'sonnetflix.com, it states, Base Media founder and CEO Chris Bremble presented the first look at the new film during the 2025 Golden Rooster film promotion event. The studio's official statement confirms that the sequel is targeting a summer 2027 release. And on top of that, they have also mentioned that according to the studio, the sequel will feature fully upgraded visuals, deeper storytelling, expanded world building, and new characters. Which honestly, literally says nothing, because that's pretty much what you'd expect in a sequel. Because, yeah, those are basically the things that should be happening in a sequel no matter what. It's like when you're going into a house and it's like, oh, you're going to be amazed by this house because it has a kitchen, a bedroom, and it has, believe it or not, a bathroom. So by that point, it's like, well, yeah, I hope it has those things because it's a house. It's supposed to have stuff like that. And that's the thing with this. It's like, it's a sequel. Of course, you're going to have deeper storytelling, new characters, and upgraded visuals and stuff like that. It should come with the package. I hope it has those things. Otherwise, I would be concerned. But on top of that, it is also stated here that in the LinkedIn post, it confirmed that the project is being brought to life once again by the original US-China creative team led by director and producer Chris Bremble and writer Chris Applehouse. Yes, Chris Applehouse nowadays is more well known for being one of the directors of K-Pop Demon Hunters, but keep in mind that before that, he was the writer and director of the original Wish Dragon. So at least they did get the main guy from the original to return and get to work on this. Now, there is a little bit of a twist, however, when it comes to this story in particular, and that is regarding with what's going to be happening with the studios working on it. Because yes, we know that Base Effects is currently making this feature, but do you know who is not involved with this? Sony or Netflix. There is no confirmation into what is happening with them and how they are going to be involved, because there's no mention of them whatsoever with what role they will play in terms of the production. Like, are they going to have a hand in the creative process? Will they be distributing it? At this point, we don't necessarily know, or at least we don't we don't know in terms of Netflix. Oh, geez, excuse me, folks. I don't know what's been going on because, oh boy, the burps have been trying to emerge in all the wrong places. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Yes, we don't know about Netflix's involvement. We don't know if they will be involved, but they do have a bit of an answer with what's happening with Sony. So let me just go and read you this little part here, to which it states, Following the November reveal, Chris Bremble provided further context on the business side of the production in an early December interview on the Befores and Afters podcast, confirming that they're beginning production on Wish Dragon 2, adding that they finished all financing. While the first film was a partnership with Sony Pictures Animation, the sequel, at least for now, is charting an independent course. Bremble explained the current status in trying to be owners of their destiny, saying they're trying to own what we do as opposed to doing it for some pretty clients. Bremble explains Sony were amazing partners. They came in and joined the film as it was going into production, as did Tencent. Tencent. And so we're going ahead with the sequel, and Sony are out of it currently, but waiting to see sort of how it goes. So we'll try to follow up with them soon. So at this point, we don't know about Netflix. There's no comment about Netflix, but there is a confirmation that Sony, for now, they're not going to be involved with this, but maybe they will in the future. Like, a lot of it is just going to be a matter of a wait and see. Now, when it comes to the first Wish Dragon, I think, when it comes to that piece of news, when it comes to the Wish Dragon movie in general, I think one word describes it best. Honestly, just looking through all this and just thinking back at the movie itself, that's all I can think of. It really is just, Because, okay, I will say this. Wish Dragon is not a bad movie. It's not the worst movie that you could find on either Netflix or from Sony Animation or whatever. As is, it's just fine. It's honestly decent, I would say. It's just okay. But with that said, though, it's not really that memorable of a feature, especially with the fact that it feels like a blatant ripoff of Aladdin. Now, it's one thing to go and try to make their own story of Aladdin, which honestly, that I was never opposed to. I completely get that it wanted to try its own adaptation, especially when the original story actually originated in China. But when it comes to Wish Dragon, however, there are way too many times where it feels like it's trying way too hard to be like the Disney movie in particular, where a good chunk of the directing just feels like, I don't know, just do what Disney did. So in that regards, I feel like when it comes to those animated features that came out in 2021 from Sony Pictures Animation that they just released on Netflix, Wish Dragon is easily the least memorable one. In fact, I think the best way to go and describe it is that when I look back at those films, it feels very unfortunate when you have something like The Mitchells vs. the Machines and Vivo come out on Netflix, because I feel like those experiences would only be greatly enhanced if you put them on the big screen. Like, those were two features that I wish came out in theaters, because it would be amazing to see that on the big screen. Whereas Wish Dragon, on the other hand, I feel like it is where it was meant to be. It just feels like a straight to home, straight to streaming Netflix movie. Don't even bother to put it on the big screen. At least for me, it doesn't feel like the kind of feature that's worth going out of your way to go and watch it in theaters and spend a good amount of money to have that experience. It's fine where it is on Netflix. It's fine where it is as a straight to streaming movie. But now that they're doing a sequel, it just honestly confuses me a little bit, mainly because I'm wondering, who is this for, actually? Is there really that much of a high demand? Or especially, it made me curious to know, did it really get big in China? Because, I know with Wish Dragon, it did, I guess, decently well on Netflix. It didn't reach the same numbers as either The Mitchells vs. the Machines or Vivo. But, I mean, for what it did, it was fine. It even says here that the announcement highlighted the massive success of the first film, noting that Wish Dragon was shortlisted for an Academy Award, nominated for a Golden Rooster Award, and ranked #1 Netflix's global animation chart with over 150 million views. Which, I mean, okay, those numbers are fine, but it still doesn't change that in the long run, Wish Dragon was not necessarily that memorable. It didn't get as high of regards, again, compared to something like Vivo or The Mitchells versus the Machines. So yeah, like, you got those numbers to prove the success of it, where like maybe there is a demand for a sequel. But for me personally, I'm kind of wondering, is it needed, honestly? Like, what else can you really do with Wish Dragon, considering that a lot of it is just taking from Aladdin? Like, is the sequel now just going to be taking a lot from Return to Jafar or something? Okay, no, I'm just joking around on that. But honestly, it's just rather odd, and it just feels rather out of nowhere to hear this announcement. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it would be more of a China thing. Like, if it is more just for them, then honestly, I get it. Especially like when it comes to the summer 2027 release date. I know it's the kind where a lot of people would see that and feel like, now hold on a second, already summer of 2027 is crammed up with a bunch of new movies. I mean, like, we're already getting Shrek 5, we're getting Beyond the Spider-Verse, we're getting the How to Train Your Dragon 2 remake. Like, we're already getting a lot of those. But if it is just for China that it would get the summer 2027 release date, okay, at that point, that makes a lot more sense. Because especially with Wish Dragon, it is a movie that is primarily made for Chinese audiences. And if you want to do it for them, then at that point, okay, that's fine, go right ahead. So yeah, honestly, there's not really a whole lot that I can go and say. Like, even in regards to like the possibility of having Netflix or Sony Animation back, maybe they will, maybe they'll have an interest to like bring that on board, or like, to also get involved with it. But honestly, it just feels hard to know what else that I could go and say about it. It's just a strange piece of news to hear that out of all the potential sequels that we're going to get, somehow Wish Dragon is going to be coming back. And I mean, maybe there is an audience out there for this, and maybe there is an audience who are going to be excited for this feature. But honestly, for those of you who are, good on you, more power to you. But for me personally, this just leaves me more confused than anything. Like, honestly, I don't know, like, what I'm more confused about. The fact that we're getting a Wish Dragon 2, or what can they even do with a Wish Dragon 2? It just, honestly, this whole thing kind of just perplexes me. But then again, maybe you have something to say about it. And I would like to go now and pass this on to the chat wall, where I would like to go and ask you all, how do you feel about a Wish Dragon 2? Are you guys excited for this? Are you guys hesitant? Do you have any idea of what they could do for a sequel? And if you are a fan of Wish Dragon 2, and if you love the movie much more than I did, I would love to know your thoughts about this. So let's see what the chat has to say. All right. To be honest, I haven't seen Wish Dragon myself, and I honestly forgot it was a movie that existed. So I'm surprised we're getting a sequel. To be honest, I just thought the original looked like an Aladdin ripoff. So honestly, I'm not that interested in the sequel. So it'll probably going to be a pass for me. That's fair enough. Honestly, I would actually say the same thing. I haven't thought about Wish Dragon in a long time. I haven't thought about it in years until this news came up, where it's like, wait, what? Wait, there's another Wish Dragon coming? Why? Anyways, does anyone even remember Wish Dragon? I mean, I liked the movie fine. It had some decent jokes and some good animation, but it was also kind of forgettable. With that said, I have no idea of what they could do with the sequel. I mean, the kid got his wishes, the dragon learns his lesson, that should be it. It's like what Brad Bird said, sometimes a story ends at the end. Maybe they could pull off something great, but right now, I'm not in any rush to watch it. Exactly. And honestly, I share those same sentiments. I want to repeat again that I don't hate the movie. I don't think it's terrible, but it is a very forgettable feature. Now, there can be some good things about it. The animation is definitely nice, but honestly, when it comes to Netflix movies and Sony animation movies, there are much more memorable and better options out there. And in this case here, I mean, if they could think of an amazing idea of what they could do for Wish Dragon 2, maybe it can be worthwhile, because there is always that possibility that they could turn things around and they could pull off something amazing with the sequel to make it much more memorable than the first. But for now, it just leaves us with more questions than answers. All right, so let's see here. Okay, we'll go here. Why not? The first Wish Dragon was already Chinese Aladdin. They might as well make the Chinese Return of Jafar. Sony has worse movies that could have gotten sequels without Sony's involvement. At least it's not the Emoji Movie 2. Can't wait to see the further advertisement of protagonist dude and love interest and sarcastic dragon genie. Guys, help. I literally remember nothing about this movie. Did the villain die? Was there even a villain? I'm drawing a blank. Good question. I don't know. Not even I can help you out with that. It's not that memorable of a feature. Yeah. Honestly, that's a great way to go and describe it. I don't even remember the names anymore of those characters. It really is that. It's just protagonist dude, sarcastic dragon genie. Although the one thing I do recall, you cannot say love interest, because they kept on hammering in that they are just friends, that they are just platonic, and they will not go anywhere further than that. That's all I remember. Okay. Anyways, let's see. Where else do we have? No, I don't want this like a waiter in a restaurant. I ain't eating this shrimp chip. Shrimp chips. Oh, that honestly unlocks a memory. There was that. There was that running gag where the dragon was just obsessed with fish chips. That was a thing, and that's it. That's it. I guess we're gonna see more of the shrimp chips jokes. I guess expect more of that in Wish Dragon 2. Anyways, so we're getting a Wish Dragon sequel. A movie, while it was a decent movie and one of the few films I watched during COVID, is getting a sequel. I guess it did well on Netflix to warrant one. But hey, I did briefly mention Chris about Wish Dragon when I first met him. He did his best on Wish Dragon. That, honestly, I will not deny. I'm sure he has. Although I would argue that he did a better job with K-pop Demon Hunters. I mean, yeah, even for me, I'm not really a big fan of K-pop Demon Hunters, but even I will agree. Yeah, like between the two, I'll definitely take K-pop Demon Hunters over Wish Dragon. At least K-pop Demon Hunters can offer more that is memorable than Wish Dragon. Let's see. Interesting. I saw Wish Dragon, and I honestly find it to be as underrated as Vivo. It's not anything legendary, and it does feel like it's copying Aladdin, but it is still charming and entertaining. But honestly, I'm not sure how to feel about the fact that they're making a sequel, especially since Sony nor Netflix are involved. Not to mention that the first one doesn't really need one. So overall, I'm really confused as to this. Yeah, honestly, I get it. You know, it really is a case where I know another person actually commented on this. JF also mentioned that like sometimes a story needs to end with the end. And I know it was a hot take before, but I still stand that another movie that I feel this way with is The Mitchells vs. the Machines. I really enjoyed that film, but I'm not sure how to feel about it having a sequel, because it feels like, that feels like a movie where, like, it's good that it ends at the end. I don't know if we really need more of that. And it's the same thing with Wish Dragon. If it's a movie that, if it needs to end at the end, then that's fine. But the fact that we have to continue, it's like, I don't know. the thing is, I know I'm sounding cynical and pessimistic, but it really is a case where they would really have to try to convince me that a sequel to Wish Dragon would be worthwhile. There is a chance, of course, that they could go and do so. But for now, oh boy, I'm just filled with doubt on this one. All right, let's see if there are any more comments here. Let's see. The announcement feels really weird to hear. I thought the movie was okay at best, but forgettable, and an Aladdin ripoff at worst. Let's see. Hearing that it's getting a sequel is honestly confusing. I could see this being better than the original if they tried something original and found a great idea for it, but was there really a big demand for a sequel? You're telling me. Let's see. Who remembers Wish Dragon? This is honestly one of those movies where I watched it once and say, it's okay, and then forgot about it. I'm wondering who's the audience for this and who was the demand for this, because I'm getting some weird deja vu. Or there must be a fan base that has not been heard. I remember nothing about it other than having a Mushu clone playing the genie, and that's it. There must be. That's the thing. Maybe there is an audience. Maybe they're predominantly in China. Who knows? But, I mean, they're out there somewhere. There's an audience for Wish Dragon, but it's just, yeah, they're out there. You got to go and find it. That's the thing. It's really, that's like a whole quest in itself. The search for the Wish Dragon fan base. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment and then we're going to move on to the next break. So let's see here. I have no idea this will be, I have no idea that this will be, will have a sequel. I thought it was just a one-time thing, but I guess someone in China just wants to make more movies with this one. But I think the most interesting one is that I think it may or may not be on Netflix because it could be on the big screen, especially if it comes with China. If it comes to China with the release of last year with Nausea 2. I mean, that's always a possibility. Maybe it could end up being released in theaters, but I mean, who knows at this point? And the future of Wish Dragon 2 is still pretty unclear. We know that it will be coming out in the summer of 2027, and that's it. The rest, just like the fan base of Wish Dragon, is a mystery. It's out there somewhere, but it's still a mystery. All right, but anyways, we're going to go on to our next break, and when we do come back, we're going to have a little bit of a fun acting talk where we will discuss about one popular actor having his biggest regret. Which one is it? Well, we will have to wait and see after this. All right, welcome back. Now, when it comes to our next story, well, instead of telling you about it immediately, I might as well go and show you what I shall be talking about. Sorry, it's just, I just had to go and make sure my throat is all good. But anyways, as I was talking about, yes, I got a little clip that I want to go and present to you. And instead, I will be having Jack Black tell us what our next subject is going to be about.
The ones that blacked me every turn.
What's the one film that you got asked to do but you couldn't? Maybe you turned it down or you had other commitments that you wish you could do, because everyone's always got one.
Yeah, there are always those, but I always think that if they were really good, they were really good because of the people that were in
that's
it.
right.
Fair point. Fair point. Jack.
It's a tricky question because then the person who got the role, they look like shit because I was second choice.
Do you know
I
what?
was sloppy seconds.
Do you know what? I will never ask that question again. I never thought
No,
of that.
I'm going to answer it because I
go
don't
on.
care. I was offered, and I do regret it, saying no, I was offered Syndrome in that
Incredibles.
fantastic movie, The Incredible, one of my favorite of all time, by the way. And I said no because I was like, Brad Bird, never heard of him. This character that you're offering me is like a villain, but he's kind of one-dimensional. I'm interested, but I'd like to see a rewrite where you add some dimensions to this character. And he was like, you're done. Get out of here. And I learned a valuable lesson because then the movie came out. It was one of the best movies ever made. I was like, why was I being so difficult?
But look, you didn't turn down Anaconda, and that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you should go and watch it wherever you're listening right now in cinemas tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Capital.
So yes, that was the main thing that Jack Black managed to share, because this is specifically from the radio show Captain FM, and Jack Black was there with Paul Rudd discussing and promoting their latest movie, Anaconda. But there was a little moment where they discussed about having any regrets about a role that they turned down, in which it went on to become something legendary. And in the case of Jack Black, he actually revealed that he was offered the part of playing Syndrome from Pixar's The Incredibles. But unfortunately, it just didn't really work out. And to go into a little bit more specifics, I'm sure that there was a little bit more info, because there were some mentions as well that some scheduling conflicts also didn't really work out. But at the time, as you heard, Jack Black was just being very picky, especially with the fact that back then, Brad Bird wasn't really that known of a director. He was still fresh out of The Iron Giant, which even back then, despite the critical praise, it was more known for being a box office bomb. So at that point, Brad Bird was still kind of an unknown director. And when Jack Black was offered the role of Syndrome, he was being picky, like, can you do some rewrites? I don't know. Syndrome feels one-dimensional. I don't know if this part really works. And Brad Bird was just having none of it. It was like GTFO. And from there, that's where we ended up with having Jason Lee play the role of Syndrome, creating the character that we ultimately know today. And honestly, when I heard about this honestly kind of tickles my acting side, because there's just so much of it that we could go and unpack, and that we could go and see in terms of, like, you know, a part of the life of an actor that not many people would go and discuss about. But first off, to go and discuss about the aspect of Jack Black, who was close to playing as Syndrome, that, I gotta say, honestly, when I think about it, I get it. Because when you think of Jack Black, especially when it comes to his voice, like, yeah, of course you would think that he has that voice of a total rock star. You know, like, this is a guy, like, he loves rock and roll. He knows the way of the music, the way of the guitar. You know, like, this is like, you could hear this dude is a music expert, and you know that this guy is the kind who would really rock out in either heavy metal, rock and roll, or that genre of music in general. The kind where, like, you could go crazy with the drums and the guitar, and, like, going into, like, some of the stereotypical themes of rock, like with going in hell, and, like, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of image. Like, that voice really does capture that. But at the same time, it's also multifunctional, because that voice can also be used to be nerdy. Because with Jack Black, especially with his more modern roles, there are times when you can hear that voice and you can imagine this is a very eccentric character that can geek out over whatever pop culture things that are out there. In fact, it kind of reminds me of his guest appearance he did once in The Simpsons, where he actually plays this rival comic guy, and that he can also be a bit of a weeb. And I think, if I remember correctly, in that episode, like, he was singing like a Japanese version of What's New Pussycat. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but, like, he was pretty much presenting himself as a nerd, and he was really selling out on, well, not selling out, that's not really the right term. He was really selling on the idea that he can be this nerdy type of character. And this is not even to mention that the nerdy side of his voice also worked extremely well with Po from Kung Fu Panda, where he was just this, before becoming the kung fu legend we know him today, he was just this major kung fu nerd where like he knows about the trivia and the facts about the Furious Five and stuff like that, and even collecting the action figures. But in terms of actually doing it, well, that's an entirely different story right there. But still, though, with Jack Black, he does have that kind of voice where it can be nerdy, but it can also be very rock and roll at the same time. And it's with that kind of voice that I feel like, honestly, I can hear him be Syndrome, because, yeah, he can have that, you know, that nerdy aspect in which, like, you can hear him as Buddy is like, I'm your number one fan, Mr. Incredible. But then over time, he would evolve into this massive villain who wants to like not just destroy, but erase all the supers so that he could become a straight up billionaire and sell equipment to literally make everybody super. And that's where we get that line of, and when everyone's super, no one will be. Oh, such a great line right there. So honestly, in that regard, like I could see why they wanted to go and get Jack Black for that. But at the same time, however, I'm glad that Jack Black didn't actually get the part and it ultimately went to Jason Lee. Because like, as cool as it could be to imagine if Jack Black would play as Syndrome, the movie itself, and I'm sure many of you listening or watching can agree with me on this, but The Incredibles is such a masterpiece. And honestly, what made Syndrome great is because of the performance of Jason Lee and how he managed to go and capture that aspect where he was once a massive fanboy, but now he wants revenge and destroy the things of what he once loved because he was so disillusioned by it, because because of that parasocial dream never came true. He wanted revenge so that nobody could go and ever have that. So, and you guys probably know me, like I love Syndrome. Like I remember way back when I did the top 10 best other Disney villains, like he was high up there. Like he reached up to number 2. Like I still stand that so far, he's possibly the best villain that Pixar has yet. Like, honestly, there's been some great attempts in recent years. Even like, even Glorden's dad in Elio was honestly a really fun villain, but still we have yet to have one that could really top the threat and the might of Syndrome. And again, a big part of it is because of Jason Lee. And honestly, this is why out of everything from this, what I find to be the most fascinating and what really resonated with me as an actor is not necessarily what Jack Black said, or even this whole story about Jack Black could have played as Syndrome. I'm just going to go and back it up a little bit. And I feel like it's actually Paul Rudd who actually said it best and really mentioned something very fascinating.
You got asked to do what you couldn't, maybe you turned it down, or you had other commitments that you wish you could do, because everyone's always got one.
Yeah, there are always those, but I always think that if they were really good, they were really good because of the people that were in it.
Right.
Fair point. So fair point. Jack.
And that, I feel like it really does ring true. It really is the fact that if a movie is great, then a big part of it is because they got the right people to go and play it. Like, again, it's great. It would be cool to have Jack Black as Syndrome, but they made the perfect choice to go and bring in Jason Lee to go and play the part. And now Syndrome has become massively iconic, and it's largely due to the casting of Jason Lee. And as an actor myself, this is a lesson that like I've come to fully understand, because there are times when you could dream of having that major role or you want to have that big part, But the thing is that you still got to think about the project itself. And if the project turns out to be legendary and you didn't get to be in it, well, it's because maybe you're not really destined for it, and it may not necessarily be a perfect fit for you. And whoever they would go and get, well, they're obviously the much better choice for it. You know, like because the thing is, when you do audition, you don't have control of which parts you can go and get and which jobs you can go and actually achieve. It's all about trial and error until you can make the stars and the planets align where you can actually have a role that can fit perfectly for you. And there are times where you may audition for major things, but you sadly won't get the part, but the project itself would go on and achieve greatness. It would be amazing. And a big part of it is because, well, they managed to get the right people for it. And maybe you're not meant to go and have something like that because, what they would ask, you're not necessarily fit for it. And it's not necessarily your fault. And I actually have a really good example of that. And that is actually with Hardy Rivals, because believe it or not, I actually auditioned for a small role for that. Now, for those of you who don't know what Hardy Rivals is, right now it's a Canadian series, and it's a massively popular Canadian series about two hockey players where they are major rivals on the ice, where one is on one team and another is on another team. But off the ice, they are major lovers, and it's like stupidly gay. Like the amount of gay in there is like massive. But again, it's now becoming one of the biggest Canadian shows since Schitt's Creek, where it's becoming not just massively popular in Canada, but it's also globally popular. Now, going back to my inclusion of this, or my attempt of including myself in there, no, I didn't audition to be any of the gay characters. Again, it was just a very minor role. It's just to be a voiceover as one of the sportscasters. Basically to be one of the people voicing like, look at Hollander go. He already scored another point and bringing his team one step closer to the cup. I just auditioned for that. But as you could tell, unfortunately, I didn't go and get the part. Now, I can go and remain bitter about not being in the series. I could still be petty and just be bitter of like, this stupid show, Hardy Rivals sucks because they didn't pick me up as an actor. They didn't hire me to be in the show. There is that part of me who can go and do that, but it is best not to do so. And Hardy Rivals has been proven to be an amazing series, a great series. And even if they didn't hire me, they did hire some more qualified people to go and actually become those sportscasters in that particular series. And this is not to go and mention that with a big show like Hardy Rivals, there's a good chance that now there's going to be more seasons that will come. And that doesn't necessarily mean that just because I audition once doesn't mean I'll never be on Hardy Rivals again. There could be another opportunity right around the corner that maybe I will end up getting a shot to have an appearance or to have a voiceover appearance in Hardy Rivals. In fact, that's literally what happened with Ghosts, where I actually auditioned a bunch of times for several small parts, like in season 1 and season 2, and it didn't really go anywhere. But it wasn't until that one role for a season 3 episode in which I was able, excuse me, I was able to actually go and get. And that's where now, that's how we ended up having that one scene in Ghosts, specifically in the 3rd season, where I get to be one of the supermarket ghosts, just carrying a box with another person and just chanting, new fish, new fish, new fish, which now has become my new subscriber alarm here in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And on top of that, even giving me a credit. Like now, I got a credit in a major CBS series, which has now become one of my big highlights so far in my acting career. And I'm very proud of that. So that's honestly the major lesson that I want to go and teach you, especially in terms of acting, is that even though one opportunity hasn't arisen and that maybe you had one shot of getting a major opportunity, but sadly you didn't get it, that doesn't necessarily mean that another one can go and come around. And I think it's safe to say the same can be said with Jack Black. I mean, he's no longer, he didn't get a chance to become Syndrome, but I mean, you look at his career, he was perfectly fine after that. Because even though he's not Syndrome, he did go on to become like many other prominent roles. Like he got to be Po in Kung Fu Panda, he got to be Bowser in the Super Mario Brothers movie, and he got to be in other major films as well. Like he got to be in the Jumanji movies, for example, and several others. So I think it is safe to say that when it comes to Jack Black, he's perfectly fine. And like even he understood that, he may not have gotten Syndrome, but that's not going to stop him from continuing his acting career and to become as prominent as he is today. So just thought I would go and share you that little story because it's rare that I would go and fully talk about acting in general. And I feel like this is like a great example to go and share this with you all, especially with some of my personal acting experiences. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, how do you feel about Jack Black almost getting the role of Syndrome for The Incredibles? Do you feel like it would have worked out? Would you prefer to have Jack Black over Jason Lee? Or do you feel like it's for the best for him not to get it? Let me know what you all think. All right, so let's see now. This is definitely interesting. The fact that Jack Black turned down playing as Syndrome for The Incredibles is interesting. And honestly, as much as I could see Jack Black as Syndrome and I see how he could have made the role work, Jason Lee was phenomenal and he really made the character what he is today. Although I do find it kind of funny, Jack Black said no to playing Syndrome for The Incredibles, yet he said yes to something like the Borderlands movie. I get what you mean, but keep in mind, like, I do see the appeal for being in the Borderlands movie because keep in mind, like, that film came out around the same time during Jack Black's major high with being in video game movies because, like, it's not just with Borderlands because this is around the same time where he was also in the Super Mario Brothers movie as Bowser, and he also got, it was also around the same time where he was in the process of getting into the Minecraft movie as well. So if it's based on a popular video game, then of course Jack Black is going to be in it. In fact, I'm kind of surprised Jack Black has not appeared in the Sonic movies yet. I wonder if they're going to go and make that happen. Let's see what else we got here now. Wow, first Billy Crystal rejecting Buzz Lightyear and now this. As much as I do like Jack Black, I will agree that Jason Lee was ultimately the much better choice since the film is so iconic and beloved that we can't imagine anyone else. But at least Jack Black voiced another beloved animated character from 2004. Lenny from Shark Tale. By the way, speaking of villains, breaking news, the writer of K-Pop Demon Hunters is making a Lord Farquaad movie apparently. Wait, what? Is that real? Hold on a sec. I just want to go and double check this. Are you for real? I just want to see. Farquaad movie. Like, I don't know. It looks like I just want to go and double check if that actually is true or if it's just like some made up news or something. Let's see now. I just want to go and double check. Okay, so he didn't. So apparently comments on the possible return of a Lord Farquaad movie. All right, so there's no confirmation. It doesn't look like there is anything that actually says that we are getting a Lord Farquaad movie. I guess for now, like, at least from what I'm gathering here, it looks like it's just a rumor. There's nothing that would actually go and say that we are getting it, especially like when some of these news, like, it's literally March of last year where he talked about like, oh, I would love to be Lord Farquaad again, from John Lithgow. So yeah, for now, I think we could say that the Lord Farquaad movie thing, it sounds like it's just rumors. Anyways, where else can we comment here? Let's see. Jack Black is a very funny actor when he's given the right material. Good time to saying this, but don't see Anaconda. It is not good. And while seeing him as Syndrome would have been cool, I really can't imagine anyone other than Jason Lee in that role. But with that said, I think Jack Black could be a good fit for a Pixar movie. It would honestly be so funny if he's cast as a villain in Incredibles 3. Peter Son, please make that happen. Oh, yeah. Actually, going back to my point, the thing is that even though Jack Black lost that opportunity to play the villain in The Incredibles, that doesn't mean that he lost his chance in being in The Incredibles. Now, the fact that we are getting an Incredibles 3 now, who knows? Maybe Jack Black could actually appear in the movie, maybe as like a side character or maybe as the villain also. Because the opportunity is never technically gone as long as you keep on going. It's like what I'm saying in terms of acting. But and that's like one of the major things, like not just with acting, but when it comes to these types of jobs where you really want to go and follow your dreams, like you really have to be persistent. You must never give up. You must keep on going until there is that one person who can go and say yes to you. So yeah, that honestly brings up a very good point. If Jack Black didn't make it in if Jack Black didn't make it in the first Incredibles, that doesn't mean that he can never make it in any other future installments of The Incredibles. All right, let's see what we got here. Here's the thing about Syndrome, though. He's not only one of the most iconic Pixar villains, but is sadly how most fandoms have now become online, especially animation fans. So hearing that Jack Black was almost being Syndrome, I could actually see it, but I get why it didn't happen due to what happened with due to what Pixar and Brad Bird want. But Jason Lee did a better job accurately portraying a typical toxic fan. I know you, and I once dealt with one. Yeah. Oh, I know you and I once dealt with one. Oh, yeah. Trust me, I've dealt with a syndrome of my own or two, so I get it. Let's see. I think I'll read one more comment, and then we're going to go on to our final break. To be honest, I wouldn't change a thing. Don't get me wrong. If he had played Syndrome, it would have been like if Poe loved superheroes, but then turned evil and became Bowser. While that idea is interesting, I still prefer Jason Lee. It's unclear what my choice is. I mean, seriously, Poe and Bowser are arguably his best animated roles. Plus, what's he so upset about? They're making another sequel after all. So, yeah, I don't think he's upset about it. It's just a funny story to go and mention. I'm sure, like, now he has moved on from this whole, he has moved on from missing out. And I mean, again, his career is completely fine. But, it's just a fun little discussion to have with this. All right, so with that said, we're going to go on to our next break, and we're going to come back for one more story, and we are going to go and discuss about the biggest controversy within the Muppet community in quite a while. So I know it sounds shocking to hear that, yeah, there's drama going on with the Muppet fandom, but you'll understand why after this break. And now, everyone, it is time that we are going to go and cap this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, we shall be discussing about the Muppets. Now, during the holiday season, we have actually seen some hype going on related to the Muppets because, of course, there have been news about the Miss Piggy movie and that we actually got some prominent stars like Jennifer Lawrence, Emma Stone, and Cole Escola who are going to be involved with that project. But on top of that, in a few weeks from now, we are actually going to be getting the Muppet Show reboot special with guest star Sabrina Carpenter. And there's been a lot of hype that's going on with that particular project. And not to mention that around Christmas time, we actually got to see the surprising return of Rizzo and Bean Bunny, who are now played by Bradley Freeman Jr. And I gotta say that his performance as those characters were shockingly good. Like, I was almost convinced that Disney brought back Steve Whitmire just to play those particular characters. But no, it's just Bradley Freeman Jr. who actually did a very good job with those characters. So it does make me even more excited to see what's to come now that those characters are able to speak again, and that maybe they'll be prominently used in the upcoming Muppet Show reboot, or what have you, who knows. But this is not about any of those things. It's not about Rizzo or Bean Bunny. It's not about the Muppets. It's actually a piece of controversy that is happening within the Muppet community. And this is honestly the biggest one we've had since the whole controversy with the Muppet History fan account. And in this case here, oh boy, let's just say as a Muppet fan, there really is a lot to unpack. So with that said, let's discuss about the new blog that Steve Whitmire wrote. So for those of you who don't know, just to give you some quick context, Steve Whitmire is a former Muppet performer whom, prior to his firing in 2017, he actually worked with Jim Henson and the Muppets for several years. In fact, for quite a few decades, in fact. Ever since during the height of the Muppet Show's popularity, he joined the group and he got to perform as many of the beloved Muppets, including the ones that I have mentioned, like Rizzo and Bean Bunny. But his true claim to fame was actually after Jim Henson passed away in 1990, Steve Whitmire was the one who took the helm to play as Kermit the Frog after Jim, where he's the one who continued Kermit's legacy to keep him alive, as you will, after Jim. And from there, he had done so for several years until, like I said, in 2017, where he was suddenly fired and his role as Kermit was replaced by Matt Vogel. Now, this would lead us to right over here with this blog, where many people have asked him about his thoughts in terms of the current position of the Muppets, both as a franchise and with the way that Kermit the Frog is now being performed by Matt Vogel. And in here, he expressed quite a bit. In fact, as you could tell, it's quite a lengthy article that he put out. And one thing that I can go and immediately say right now is that this is not a well-structured article, or not even a well-structured blog. And by that, I mean the formatting is just freaking all over the place. I mean, you could tell, like, on the right side that, like, a lot of it is just cutting off, where, like, there are some words that are missing and you kind of have to do a bit of a guessing game to know, like, what he is saying. And not to mention that everything is literally in all caps. Like, I don't know if he was writing this and forgot that he had the cap locks on or something like that. But yeah, this is not, it's hard to read through literally because of, like, some missing words and because it's literally in all caps. But I'm not going to go and fault Steve on that. I think it's more because of the website. And he is aware of it, which is why he did take it down. And he stated that he's going to go and re-upload it where it will be better formatted, which is why this one right over here, it's actually from an archive page. This is not the official thing, technically. But in terms of the reactions of what Steve Whitmire has stated, when it comes to how the Muppets are nowadays, how Kermit the Frog is being handled, and how some of that magic is lost, and that the vision that once Jim Henson had is, like, really fading away. Oh, excuse me. As you can tell, this thing has got me all choked up as a Muppet fan. But back to what I was talking about. The thing with all this is that with Steve Whitmire and his blog, he has gotten some mixed receptions at best. Like, the most that I could say that specifically with his article that, by the way, he calls "Where Oh Where Has Our Little Frog Gone?" At least on Instagram, you will see that fans have been divided by it. There are those who are on his side and completely agree with what he has stated about the Muppets and Kermit. But then at the same time, there are also those who were disappointed and they disagree with Steve Whitmire, mainly because of his attitude, where it feels like he's just bitter and that he's being very egotistical with the way that he presented his blog. So yeah, that's why I just wanted to go and say that at best, it's been rather divided. And I'll tell you why it's at best. Now, I did read through this, and I gotta say, as a Muppet fan, like I talked to another friend of mine about this, and we both agreed that there really was a lot to go and unpack here. But I just want to go and start off by saying that there are some things that I do agree with Steve Whitmire. There are some things that honestly I understand and that I completely agree with some of the things about both Kermit and with the current situation with the Muppets. Like, number one thing that he mentioned is that the way that the Muppets are being handled as a brand, as a franchise, that the way that Disney is handling the Muppets is pretty much the same way that they have been handling things like Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar and stuff like that, which is not necessarily the right direction to go with it, because it really does lessen the value of the Muppets themselves when they're just treated as a franchise per se. And there's also another factor of how the Muppets are pretty much treated as just characters. That these are just like little cartoon groups that people would go and audition for, and that they would get the part. And the problem with that is how the Muppets, they're not necessarily characters. They should be seen as actors as much as the performers who would go and play with them. And that, again, I also do agree, because like with Kermit the Frog or Fozzie and Gonzo, I know some people would go and argue that they are technically characters, but with their personalities and with who they are and with the legacy that they have, it's best to go and present them as actors no different than what you would go and see during award season or in movies or in shows. Like the way the way that we see Kermit should be no different than the way that we would see people like George Clooney or Brad Pitt or who have you, for example. So from there, that I do completely agree. And that I do understand with what Steve Whitmire is talking about, with the way that the Muppets should be handled in a way that is more respectful than just a franchise. And with the Muppets themselves, they should be treated more as actors than characters. In fact, one of the best things that Disney has done with the Muppets, and I wish they could go and do more, is when they had Kermit and Fozzie as special guest stars in some animated shows, where Kermit made a cameo in one episode of Amphibia, and that Fozzie Bear had a cameo in Big City Green. And they weren't playing as themselves. I mean, some people could go and argue that maybe with Kermit, like the gimmick of his character is that he is Kermit. But then you see Fozzie's cameo in Big City Green, and that one, he's like, Fozzie was not being Fozzie. Like, you could tell that it's Fozzie's voice, but he's playing like a completely different character. And for that moment, he was legit treated like an actor no different than any of the other voice actors who would be a guest star or would be regulars in Big City Green. Honestly, that should be the way that Disney should go and handle the Muppets more regularly. But with that said, though, even though I do agree with those points, man, did Steve Whitmire really drop the ball on this one? And I can't help but feel like he is absolutely wrong with his stance on the Muppets. Because honestly, I gotta be on the side with the people who disagree with him. Because yes, I do feel like the way this passes off, it feels like he's just being absolutely bitter. Like, even after all these years, that now it's been almost like 9 years since he's been fired, like, he is still, like, you could tell that he is still massively upset that he's no longer Kermit the Frog and that he has no control over the Muppets as it is right now. And to make matters worse, he is pretty much like throwing his anger towards everyone, including his former colleagues and even towards fans as well. Like, pretty much saying that he is upset at them, that he's mad that those people are not making things go his way. And just to go and read you some passages, for example, like there's this one part here where he would go after the fans, and he mentions there are an awful lot of fans who think that as long as something green with ping pong ball eyes hops around, it constitutes as Kermit the Frog. Further, sentiments are expressed essentially saying that something is better than nothing. What a sad fate for Jim Henson's most well-known alter ego. I love all the fans, but with respect, on these some, I don't know, like the word is like suddenly gone. On these points, you are wrong. Kermit is the spoke in the middle of the Muppet wheel around which all things Muppet revolve. And without Kermit being fully intact, there is no future for the Muppets. No new direction, no exploitative reboots, no future. So basically, he's pretty much mad at the people who are, he's basically mad at the fans who are still excited about the new stuff for the Muppets. It's basically the closest thing where Steve Whitmire might as well just go and say, oh, you guys are just freaking Disney shills because you're letting Disney do whatever they want with the Muppets. But then there's also another paragraph in which he would go and talk a little bit about tribute bands, about bands who would go and perform as the people that they would portray, like Beatles tribute bands or like Elvis tributes and stuff like that. But then he would go and say, none of these tribute bands claim to be the actual thing. There was no attempt to make the public believe that what they were seeing and hearing was the genuine article. The actual people themselves all lacked the depth and creative spark before brought about the respective phenomena in the first place. Without the bona fide original having created a connection to the audience, these tribute bands are no more impressionistic copycats opportunistically garnering attention by pretending to be representatives of something of immeasurable value. And so we find ourselves in a world where we look at the Muppets. What is before us is essentially a tribute band. The difference, they are claiming to be authentic, and you are expected to believe that. And this right over here, holy crap, what a freaking hypocrite Matt Vogel is being here. Because number one, he's pretty much throwing a lot of his former colleagues under the bus. It's not just like the people who have performed after him. It's not just in regards to the people who have played Muppets that he has played, like with either Bradley Freeman Jr. or Matt Vogel, but he's also throwing under the bus the people that he has collaborated with for many years, like with Eric Jacobson or Bill Barretta, for example, and several others. Oh, did I say Matt Vogel? No, okay, sorry. I meant that, okay, sorry, I didn't mean Matt Vogel. I meant Steve Whitmire, yes. Yes, I did mean, yeah, that basically Steve Whitmire is pretty much throwing like his former colleagues under the bus, such as Matt Vogel and Bradley Freeman Jr., as well as like Bill Barretta and who else? Like Bill Barretta and Eric Jacobson and several others. And not to mention, like, it does bring up one major question. Like, yeah, you would go and throw them under the bus, and yet, what about Dave Goelz, though? The man who has been a Muppet performer much longer than Steve Whitmire has for over 50 years and still playing his iconic roles of Gonzo, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, and several others. What about him? Like, he is still an OG player, and yet are you going to throw him under the bus as well to say that he's just part of that tribute band as well? And not to mention that when it comes to Steve Whitmire, like, this is the big thing that I just feel like it's massively hypocritical for him to do as well. Because even though there are some Muppets that he has originated, like Rizzo and Bean Bunny, which oddly enough, nowhere in this article would he ever mention any of the other Muppets that he has played. Like, he doesn't talk about Rizzo or Bean or even Beaker. It's just about Kermit, and not even to mention like some of the other Muppets outside of the of the Muppets in general. Like, he doesn't even talk about like Ernie from Sesame Street or Wembley from Fraggle Rock. No, he only talks about Kermit right over here. And I honestly feel like it is massively hypocritical for Steve Whitmire to go and actually make that statement, because he himself is technically, like, even when he was playing Kermit, he was part of that tribute band. Because throughout most of this entire thing, he would go and lecture about the way that Jim Henson would go and perform and portray Kermit the Frog, and that only he understands this, that he knows the way to bring Kermit to life the exact same way that Jim Henson would go and do so. And I just want to go and say that I do understand that there are still some people out there who are still iffy about Matt Vogel's performance as Kermit the Frog. Like, he hasn't warmed up to many people as of yet to go and fully convince that he is Kermit the Frog. Now, personally, I'm on the side where I want to go and give Matt Vogel a chance. And to his credit, he has been getting better and better with his performance as Kermit. And I feel like as the years go by, he has greatly improved his performance, where now he is convincingly more and more to be Kermit the Frog. But what I want to say here is that, and I know this might be a hot take, but as much as Matt Vogel's Kermit is different than Steve's and Jim's, we have not talked enough about how Steve Whitmire's Kermit is actually more different than Jim Henson's. And if you don't believe me, think about the movies, the projects, the specials, the shows, and all that kind of stuff. Think about the ones in which Steve Whitmire played as Kermit the Frog. Think about stuff like the 2015 Muppets, or Letters to Santa, or A Very Merry Muppet Christmas, or even Muppets from Space. Think about when Steve Whitmire was Kermit in those projects. Would that be the same Kermit as the Kermit that we know from The Muppet Show, or The Muppet Movie, or Muppets Take Manhattan, or anything like that in which Jim Henson himself would go and perform? Or like some people would even bring up, one even mentioned the 2011 movie. Yes, that's another good example. The thing is, but the point that I want to go and make is that the way that Steve portrayed Kermit is a lot more different than Jim Henson's Kermit. And this is not to go and say that what Steve Whitmire did was bad. I love Steve Whitmire's Kermit. I grew up with Steve Whitmire's Kermit. But to say that his Kermit is exactly like Jim Henson's is honestly a lie. And his version of Kermit is as different to Jim Henson's Kermit as much as Matt Vogel's Kermit is different. So he shouldn't be on that high pedestal telling people how Kermit the Frog should be portrayed. And especially, like, it's also really stupid of the way that he would go and say, like, oh, you know, I feel, you know, the way that he would go and say, like, you know, I'm not mad at the Disney executives or Matt Vogel or the Hensons. Like, you know, he's trying, you know, there was one passage where he would say, like, he's not mad. But then down the line, I just want to know if I could go and find that one little part where he says that he's not mad. Where I want to know if there's a place that I could go and find it. Actually, hold on. I think I know what to do. Okay, there we go. Yeah, like he says, like he actually says right over here, like, I don't hate Disney executives, the Hensons or Matt, and this new old conceit might make you laugh, but let's be clear that this is the product of treating the Muppets as what they are rather than who they are. And the thing is, yeah, he says he's not mad, but let's go and read at the end about how he feels of the way that Kermit is being portrayed here. He pretty much says, so you say you have trouble with the voice? Let me tell you, he is missing is far greater loss than a voice. Virtually everything of Jim that he put into Kermit, his thought process and timing, certain southernisms and expressions, quirks and affections, historical references, and contextual background, that slight indignant inquisitiveness, his general outlook at and his life philosophy, that old-fashioned, understated, and uneasy equanimity when things are going very wrong while still accepting it for what it is, all things that have been observed to be understood and implemented, all things that have made us, the word is pretty much gone there, were kept alive at the core of Kermit, gone for good. How the hell do you think that Matt Vogel would feel if he would be reading that? Like, honestly, yeah, he would keep saying, I'm not mad, but nah, this reads as like big mad, dude. And I think honestly, like, it's bad enough that he would throw his former colleagues under the bus. And it's bad enough that he's being very hypocritical, where he's trying to say that he knows about the way that Kermit should be played the same way that Jim Henson would. Like, despite the fact that, like, again, he would be going after, like, he would be going after people like Matt Vogel and be going after the fans and stuff like that. And you know, the funny thing is, by the way, just a side note, that not even Frank Oz would be this brutal and harsh about it. I mean, yeah, like, Frank Oz has often been known to be very critical about the way that Disney would be handling the Muppets, but even he would not go and straight up attack any of the fans or any of the people working with the Muppets currently. Like, he would just keep his focus just on Disney, and that's it. I know that Frank Oz still has a lot of respect for the current Muppet performers now. In fact, he's the one who actually chose Eric Jacobson to be his successor for characters like Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy. But I think, you know what? Honestly, I don't necessarily have a lot of time, and there's still more that I want to go and discuss. So yeah, this is going to be a big part. So I'm just going to go and take a break right now. And then when we come back, I want to go and discuss with you with what is possibly the worst part about this, a side in which that actually proves why Disney and the Hensons were right about firing Steve Whitmire. Okay, welcome back. Now, this is honestly the big thing that I feel like is the biggest turnoff, and this is honestly the big part where I feel like Steve Whitmire really screwed over himself with his rant about the Muppets, is that in this entire thing right over here, I feel like Steve Whitmire kind of called himself out, where he managed to somehow prove why Disney and the Hensons were correct about firing him. And there's actually one claim that I remember that Disney and the Hensons did when they were explaining why they fired Steve Whitmire. And now it feels like I'm starting to believe them now. I'm not saying that what they're saying is true about him, but Steve Whitmire did kind of expose a side of him where it really does sound like someone who would do that. And what I mean is that I recall one of the main reasons why Disney and the Hensons decided to kick Steve Whitmire out of the Muppets is because of how he was very much overprotective about his role as Kermit the Frog, so much so that he wanted no one else to go and play as Kermit. He wanted to make sure that he is the only person on this planet that gets to play Kermit the Frog, and that's it. Like, he would have to be dead if you want someone else to go and play as Kermit. And so much so that allegedly he went and blacklisted any and other actors or any other puppet performers out there who would go and actually audition to play as Kermit's understudy. Like, if Disney wants Kermit to actually appear in Walt Disney World, and then at the same time he would show up in New York or something, then they want to make sure they could go and hire someone who could actually play as Kermit during that time. Now, at that point, and it still rings true today, I just want to go and state that it is still an allegation. We do not have any confirmation if Steve Whitmire, I don't know why I keep going into Matt Vogel. I think in my mind, I think like in my Muppet mind, I'm now starting more and more to connect the fact that Kermit the Frog is played by Matt Vogel. That's why I'm having a hard time to say like, okay, no, I'm talking about Steve Whitmire, not Kermit, not Matt Vogel. It's Steve Whitmire. Okay, but anyways, as I was saying, like the thing is, there is no confirmation if Steve Whitmire actually did do that. There's no, like, we don't have any evidence if he actually went and blacklisted any performers who would go and want to audition as Kermit the Frog for Disney. But then when we go into this article right over here, he would bring up a lot of his opinions in regards to the idea of people auditioning for certain Muppets while there is a main performer for that particular Muppet. So let me just read you some excerpts here where he stated the expectation of who Kermit had become was the result of the character being the extension of a specific performer. Where Kermit spoke, it had the gravitas of a direct connection with the artist underneath. And once established, alterations to repeat the source, Jim Henson in this case, were literally unacceptable. And then moving on down, he says, once it became the standard for ongoing established characters who are well known by the fans to be recast in cattle call auditions, the true subjective art of the Muppets began to disappear for all time. Now, many of the top tier Muppets are based upon a list of cliched traits observed in YouTube videos. They lack the depth of characters upon which they were originated, and even worse, what we recognize is replaced by new interpretations. They still do the same old stories using the same old jokes and sight gags, but with no legitimate evolution. That's because there are no new ideas from them, only surface observations made by owners, producers, and performers that view them objectively from the outside rather than from the core of the character's subjective heart and minds, with any direct access to the original source has been eliminated. So at that point, again, I want to go in and reiterate that I do agree with what Steve Whitmire is saying in terms of wanting to have, wanting the characters to be established as legitimate personalities, no different than you and me. But his approach to it is absolutely wrong. And again, this may not confirm that Steve Whitmire would go and blacklist actors who would ever portray any of his characters, like anybody who would audition for like Kermit or Rizzo or anything like that. This may not have confirmed it, but I feel like in here, man, does he sound exactly like the kind of person who would actually go and do that kind of action. Because as someone in the chat wall actually states, what Steve Whitmire is doing is straight up gatekeeping, and is just so entitled of thinking that he is the Kermit the Frog. And honestly, it's what completely ruins it, and what makes me feel like why I think he's absolutely wrong about the Muppets. Again, I do believe that Steve Whitmire does bring up some good points. I do agree with what he has to say in terms of the Muppets being handled as a brand, which they shouldn't, and that we should see the Muppets more as personalities themselves than as characters. That I completely agree. But his attitude, his entitlement, his ego has really gotten the best of him, where this article that he wrote honestly feels a lot more destructive than it could be anything productive. From there, he's just, like I said before, he's just gatekeeping. He's just trying to establish himself as like the martyr of the Muppets, thinking that he knows exactly the direction where it should be, and that it needs to stay true with how Jim Henson should be. And honestly, I have to disagree with that as well, because he talks a lot about how, oh, the Muppets need to be exactly like how Jim Henson has always interpreted. Honestly, like, he's just trying to do, like, we need to do what Jim would do at all times. And as a Disney fan, honestly, that's a direction you never want to go. Because I've seen the way Disney would go and get into the direction of what would Walt do, especially when looking into their history, like back in the 1970s and the 80s, when they were fueled by that question. I can guarantee you the Muppets would be having a bad time. And I think this might be a hot take again, but the Muppets would be in a much worse position if all they would do is just keep asking themselves, what would Jim Henson do? And honestly, and going back into Steve Whitmire with what he's been doing, with how it is so destructive, all he's been doing is just continuously attack his former colleagues, to attack Disney, and especially to attack fans. And if he wants to go after Disney, that's fine. That's one thing. You could definitely be critical with the way that they have been handling the Muppets these past several years. But if you're going to be going after the performers that you have collaborated with for many years, and if you're just going to be also going after the fans as well, then honestly, you're going to be losing a lot of them. And that's why I said that at best, it left fans divided, because I've also seen a lot of them who are massively pissed off. I even took a glance at the Tough Pigs Discord and see what they had to say, and my God, they were pissed. In fact, I would even dare say this is the most upset that I have seen Muppet fans in a long time. I haven't seen them be this pissed off at Disney, but to Steve Whitmire with what he said, whoa boy, he really did pinch a nerve. And yeah, honestly, I feel like Steve really did drop the ball on this one. And I think it's more of a matter of ego, and that he's making it more about himself, more so than with the Muppets. So if anything, the real problem here is that Steve Whitmire needs to be humbled down. He needs to realize that, you know, his ego is getting the best of him. And I understand he wants what's best for the Muppets, but at the same time, he can't be throwing other people under the bus that way. He needs to realize that he himself is another tribute band player, and that his Kermit is no different than what Matt Vogel is doing right now. So I just wanted to go and express my thoughts onto all this, and that yes, there are problems right now with the way that Disney has been handling the Muppets, but with what Steve Whitmire has been suggesting, especially with this right over here, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it. All right, now with that said, I know that I pretty much let out a lot, but now I want to go and ask the chat wall, what do you all think about the article that Steve Whitmire wrote and his stance on the Muppets, with Kermit the Frog, with the former performers and the fans? And especially if you have read the article, I would love to know your thoughts on this as well. All right, let's see now. There's certainly things that Disney could do a lot better in terms of, I almost lost it there. There's certainly things that Disney could do a lot better in regards to the Muppets. They don't use them as much as they should, but at least people behind the Muppet projects do try and stay true to the same spirit of the Muppets, even if it is a bit inconsistent. Steve Whitmire though needs to move on. Exactly. I think that that's a major problem. He has yet to move on from the fact that he's not playing as Kermit. And like, you know, the funny thing is that even in the article, like he has mentioned about the, he has mentioned about the upcoming Muppet Show reboot. And, he even mentioned that he tried so hard to actually bring back, hold on a sec. Right over here. Like, he tried so hard to try to bring back the Muppet Show reboot. It even says here, enter a big shiny reboot of the Muppet Show just around the bend. An idea I pitched multiple times from 2010 forward, only to see it entirely ignored. But I had very specific reasons for proposing bringing back the series at that juncture. And from there, he would go on describing, like, he tried so hard to bring it back, and now that Disney is doing so without him, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if this article is pretty much a response where he's just massively upset that Disney is actually rebooting the Muppet Show and that he's not involved. That, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that would actually be the reason. Let's see here. I'll be honest, I haven't read this myself. However, I can honestly understand why you would disagree with this. I can understand being upset with Disney and how they handle the Muppets, but with Steve Whitmire, it really does feel like he is still bitter over his firing after all these years. Honestly, I feel sorry for Matt Vogel, considering his Kermit's current voice actor. He is Kermit's current voice actor and doing what he can as the character. It just makes Steve look bad. Exactly, man. Honestly, that's all I can think of. Like, poor Matt Vogel and all this. It's just like, I just feel like this is just piling on unnecessary hate towards Matt Vogel, where, yeah, sure, his is different, but again, people are forgetting that Steve Whitmire's Kermit is different to Jim Henson's. I'll even go as far and say that if social media existed during the time that Steve Whitmire got to replace Jim Henson as Kermit, he would have faced as much backlash as Matt Vogel has. Like, a lot of people would be complaining of that, oh, his Kermit is too mean-spirited. He sounds too different than what Jim Henson did and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, like, he should not be in a position to go and lecture who Kermit should be and who isn't, especially with the fact that it really feels like he knows better than literally everyone else, including the Hensons, which, that's at the point where I feel like, okay, honestly, slow down, buddy. Let's see now. This whole rant feels like Steve trying to vent his frustrations for getting fired almost a decade ago. It feels hypocritical, and saying that, oh, this is ruining the Muppets, they're being commercialized, is honestly just stupid. Him blasting his fellow performers, Disney, and the fans is just awful. Also, you couldn't afford as an enter key. I could barely read the article as many of the words just stop. Steve needs to move on, as this toxic attitude is just ruining him. Exactly. You know when things are bad when you're in a position where you're actually making Disney look good. So that's the thing. I know not everyone is going to agree with me on this, and maybe I might end up getting more comments where I'm going to be accused of being a Disney shill. But in this case over here, it's hard not to see the bitter ego that Steve Whitmire is just portraying, and that he's still upset that he's not being Kermit, and that his dream of being in the Muppet Show where he gets to play as Kermit is not coming true, or that it is happening, but just without him. Oh boy. Well, let's see. I'll think, if the internet in the 90s was the same as the internet today, some people would complain Steve doesn't sound the same or sound weird. Exactly, man. We need to discuss more about how Steve Whitmire's Kermit is different to Jim Henson's Kermit, because really, like, at that point, you'll understand that, Kermit has been different for decades now. And the fact that Matt Vogel's Kermit is different has not changed anything. Let's see. Even with Disney's treatment on the Muppets, at least the people working on the project still have a lot of love and effort put into their characters for various things they did in the past few years. With Steve Whitmire, though, his rant reeks of pettiness, grudge, and hypocrisy. He needs to calm down and realize that the reason he got kicked out is justified, or may be justified. On the plus side, the Bambi live action remake is now canceled. Oh, good. Okay. Well, at least we got that. Yay, no more Bambi live action remake. Hey, the one silver lining from all this. All right, I think I'll read one more comment and then I'll cap it off here. To be straight, I really can't be on the side of anything in this case. Who is right, who is wrong? It really makes your head spin. Yes, I do want the Muppets to be more prominent like they were in the glory days, but Steve really needs to let this stuff go and know that no magic is ever dead, but can be reborn. It just builds over time. Muppets are getting there, and I know they'll make it again. It's just like saying Disney is gone without Walt, or SpongeBob is without Steve Hillenburg. Just around, but it's never gone. Honestly, that is a very nice sentiment and a very nice way to cap off not just this story, but also this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Yes, this was quite a big episode, but man, was it a fun episode. And I want to thank you all for joining me on this. And we'll see for next time if we can continue the momentum of this madness on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And by the way, if you guys enjoyed your time here and you want to listen to more of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, don't forget to go and follow me, or actually go and subscribe to the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel, or the AniMat's, or actually the Animat Live Twitch channel. Don't forget to go and subscribe to me there. At the same time, though, if you would like to go and listen to more of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast on whatever podcast service you're listening to, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, Google, and many others, then all you have to do is just follow me there as well. And with that said, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.